So we were talking about Beast Wars as a podcast about two comedians rewatching the 1990s TV series Beast Wars Transformers. Although we are discussing a children's television show, the podcast itself is not intended for children. So Phil, as longtime listeners know, I recently moved to New Zealand, and through a friend of a friend, I have met an Indian man named Dill. And are you feeling threatened?
Is that true?
Yes, that is true.
No, that I refuse to. That's too ridiculous to be true. That's like a you joke. That's one of the jokes you tell.
It is, but I have met an Indian man named Dill. Listeners, I'm Andy Hunter, and I'm joined by...
My name's Phil Thomas, and I am a contributor on this podcast for now. Maybe I'll be replaced by Dill within a few weeks. We'll have to see how this goes.
You are a co-host, not just a contributor.
Oh, wow. I got upgraded.
Yeah, Dill will be sad to hear that. No, listeners, Phil has had many experiences over his life involving people with a similar or the exact same name as him, but this is another one of them. So we were talking about Beast Wars.
Oh, yeah. So we were talking about Beast Wars. Are you going to explain the genesis of that?
Oh, yeah, why not? So Phil and we go back to high school.
Believe it or not, the year we met is the first year of Beast Wars. The first season aired in 1996.
There we go. And Phil and I, being children originally of the 80s, we certainly had a soft spot in our hearts for Transformers. And so as we spoke and we had various digressions in conversations, whenever we couldn't quite remember how we'd gotten onto a subject, it was easy enough to say like, so we were talking about Beast Wars, and then get back to that somehow. And so now here we are again, over 25 years later, once again, talking about Beast Wars.
Yeah.
This is my first time rewatching the show in over 10 years, maybe 15. Phil, how long do you think it's been since you last watched the show?
It's been at least 20 years since I've seen episode 1 and 2 for sure.
Okay. So today we're covering Beast Wars parts 1 and 2. It opens with the opening theme. I gotta say, I still like the song. It's a good thing it's catchy because they do use that as the battle theme at least once, if not more than once per episode. So for the next 52 episodes, we're going to be hearing that song a lot. Still works for me.
I would say it works for me too. The tribal-ish drums, I think, have really stood the test of time, but it's still good.
I got to say, the CGI, it is very 90s. You got to deal with that. Listeners, if you want to watch this show, you'll have to deal with CGI that looks like it was made in 1996.
So I have an alternate take on this. Okay. I expected it to look unwatchable, the CGI that's in there, but I had a couple of different observations while watching this.
Okay.
You know how cartoons in general are somewhat of a deprecated format. So like cartoons are sort of a lower fi version of video in a way, and that's kind of the point.
Sure.
So in that way, when you look at the CGI that's used in Beast Wars, I think it's similar to the way cartoons are different from video. This is a more deprecated CGI as befitting a cartoon. So you can make the argument that it's not old, it's actually a style.
Yeah, and I agree. It looks of its time, but yeah, it's not unwatchable at all. In the introductory scenes, the characters are mostly hidden in shadow because CG models are expensive to make, and they did not, for the most part, I think, want to have to make models of what they looked like before assuming their Beast Wars forms. The Maximal ship, not yet named, but we will eventually learn that is called the Axelon. They launch a bunch of stasis pods as they're crashing down to the planet. I'm going to try to make a mental note how many stasis pods end up being followed up on, because of course that's the out that they use to introduce new characters anytime they want to either for story purposes or for toy selling purposes, introduce a new character. The stasis pod comes down and includes it. But it looks like they launched dozens out. And over the course of the series, like 6 more characters at most show up. So I don't remember at the end, do they say like, well, we're on our way and we've collected those stasis pods that were still around? Or are they forgotten about? I don't quite remember. I have to say this, as the ships crash, I thought it was a really nice effect, the way we see the ships crashing in the distance silently, and then the camera like has a delayed shockwave, and I'm like, oh, that's nicely done. A stylish shot and choice that I was very impressed by.
I was also impressed by that. I thought the directing and camera angles for a lot of the shots were quite good. I think there was a lot borrowed from a lot of other film before it, and maybe the deprecated nature of the CGI may throw people. But a lot of the stuff and a lot of the visual storytelling is really good and is, in my opinion, a good compliment to the really solid writing.
Yeah, although I certainly have a handful of snarky things to say about the writing. For example, Megatron, when he's talking with the computer, they're both obliquely referring to, like, is this the correct destination planet? Okay, I guess they're being oblique because the writers don't want to reveal yet what planet they were heading to. But then never mind, 2 scenes later, that Dinobot is like, we were heading to Earth, and this definitely ain't Earth. Like, I don't know why Megatron wasn't just saying, computer, is this Earth? But whatever, nobody's perfect, right? Nobody's perfect. And something that niggles me won't niggle somebody else. What are your thoughts on anytime Rat Trap in beast form stands up on 2 legs?
It reminds me of when a cat stands up on 2 legs, or like it's sitting on 2 legs, it's kind of just plopped there unnaturally.
Yeah.
Like cats are not supposed to do this. Yeah, Rat Trap looks like that. He's like a wet sack of sugar or coffee grinds or something.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I appreciate that they decided, like, no, we want him to still look like a rat and not like we're gonna make him an anthropomorphic rat when he needs to stand up or something. But yeah, it is like, it does very much look to me like, oh, yeah, rats don't stand on two legs. Why is he doing it all the time? But whatever, because sometimes they need somebody with opposable thumbs to do something, even when it's beast mode. Otherwise, it's just Optimus, right?
So I have a couple of quibbles here too. One, I think actual rats, when they stand on their hind legs, they have a little more leg than Rat Trap conveyed. So I think they were shortchanged a little bit. Also, I think Rat Trap clearly looks like a mouse and not a rat.
Well, as we may recall from later episodes, Dinobot's not so affectionate nickname for Rat Trap, in fact, is Mouse. Are you saying Dinobot's on the right side of history?
Yes, it's part of his moral code. What's that line from episode 1 of season 2? To think that a warrior like me has been reduced to a rat patrol.
Listen, Dinobot, we all have lousy jobs sometimes. Some of us even turn to the lowly art of podcasting for a career. So,
can I interject a fun activity for us to do?
Sure.
What are your favorite voice impressions to do of characters from Beast Wars?
I think for me, definitely Megatron is probably my number. It's just so satisfying. Yes. Very satisfying to hear and to do. And otherwise, Waspinator has got a cute voice, so I like to try. Listeners will have to tell us whose Waspinator is best, because I feel like you asked this question so that you could do Waspinator. So
I completely forgot about that, actually. Waspinator can't blow up. Waspinator has plans.
Oh, that is good. That is Phil's Waspinator. My Waspinator is Waspinator has a headache in his whole body.
That's really good too. That's really good.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I like yours too.
Any other impressions that you enjoy doing?
So who has the memorable voices? There are a lot of just regular voicey voices like Optimus Primals, And Rhinox's voice is just a regular deep voice.
Yeah.
Tarantulas has a memorable voice. It's hard to describe. A very sinister, sciencey voice.
Yeah.
I'm going to pray over your body and twitch about a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. And I do like how he just laughs insanely when he terrorizes. Like, oh, all right. 2-part episodes to introduce 10 characters. We don't get to know all of them super well, but for Tarantulas, we do get insane laughter when he transforms. So we're getting to know him a little bit. Dinobot is a memorable voice. Some later episode, he tells Optimus, eventually can be a very long time. Optimus Primal.
That's a very good one. And I love that. I've actually remembered that off and on for years.
Yeah. So we really were talking about Beast Wars a lot back in the day. That so much of this has stuck with us. So, Phil, which do you think is the case? That most of these characters simply did not have names before this mission when they took their names? Or that just in Transformer society, it's pretty common for them to change their names when they take a new form?
Man, you and I had so many of the same thoughts rewatching this episode. And I probably came down on the side that you did, which is that it's cultural. There are traditions and customs in lots of human societies and in some of our own cultures where there's some sort of occasion or rite of passage and someone is given a new name, an honorific name. But if you're actually going through some sort of metamorphosis, you would think if you were part of some sort of alien race, we're transmuting your physical properties, but still remaining yourself, but also taking on a new form that in its quintessence is you, but in other parts is different. You would think that there would be some type of way of indicating that. And taking on a new name, I think makes a lot of sense if you actually think it through culturally.
Yeah, it does make a lot of sense. And I will note, certainly in these 2 episodes, and I think maybe as the entire series goes on, but we'll see, no one accidentally dead names any of the other characters. Like, it's not like Rat Trap says, hey, Cheetor. So either Transformer Society is slightly more enlightened than ours, or they're robots, and so it's easy for them to just like erase the old name from their data banks and replace it with the new one.
Or maybe they lost the rights to the old name. Who knows how things work?
Who knows? Yeah, that is interesting. So we will see. I didn't do really any research for this episode, but for future episodes, the whole like toy selling aspect is certainly a part of this show that I think warrants conversation at some point. And how, like, yes, as you just said, about rights, I think Dinobot is named Dinobot as opposed to like Raptortron or something because Hasbro or whoever it is wanted to hang on to the name Dinobot, and it had been 10 years or whatever since they'd last made a toy that had a Dinobot name somewhere on it. It's a business.
And let's not forget that Jurassic Park was still all the rage. So you've got to throw a raptor in somewhere. There's got to be a raptor in everything.
Yeah. Phil and I had a raptor in our homeroom in high school. So Dinobot challenges Megatron for leadership, saying he's incompetent. He failed to get them to Earth. But then Scorponok is hidden behind Megatron and just blows Dinobot away. However, I did catch a little error. At the start of that scene, we see Scorponok leaving the Predacon ship before Dinobot does. So either he's just very sneaky and like snuck back in while Dinobot was railing at Megatron, or there was an animation boo-boo. Right? I mean, I hate to slight the fine people at Mainframe Entertainment, but how dare anybody ever make a mistake? Dinobot is the first transformation we see. He and Rhinox both appear to be in terrible pain when they're transforming from beast form to robot form. I feel like Dinobot, he like reaches his like head back and his arms go like almost like a cross between doing like Dancing the Thriller and having a heart attack. I feel like. And Rhinox, of course, like, he looks like somebody who's about to open his mouth so wide that it will split in half. Which is the case. I just thought that was funny.
That's a really good point. I forgot about that. I think I enjoyed watching their transformations so much that I still have forgotten how ridiculous some of their transformations are. Whereas like Rat Trap just kind of, stands up and folds very calmly. It's
Yeah,
like,
he just like unfolds
no
his
big
beast
deal.
part into a backpack, basically. But yeah, some of them do a lot of reorganization. I remembered this from watching it back in the day. I still like how Rhinox does that little like weight shift when he transforms to robot mode. Just thought it's like such a nice touch from like, oh yeah, if a rhino were to suddenly stand up, yeah, it's heavy enough that yeah, you would need to. He always like takes a step after he transforms. I just thought it looked cool.
That's that's interesting. I never put that together. I did notice something else about his transformation and Dinobot's transformation.
Okay.
The toys that have good transformations from beast mode to robot mode are one for one from the toys. Cheetors, for example. He looks like the cheetah toy, and the transformation that occurs there is the one that occurs on the toy. And his robot mode is identical to what the toy robot mode looks like. And I would say the same is essentially the same for Optimus Primal.
Yeah.
But what I think is funny about the transformations of Dinobot and Rhinox is that their robot modes on the toys are so underwhelming that they completely eschewed what those robot modes look like. They're like, well, we're just going to make Rhinox look like a big badass dude. And we're also going to make Dinobot look like just a giant badass dude.
Yeah, I think that is a good point. The ones that they did the most redesigning, the robot forms, are the ones where they have to, maybe fudge things the most in the transformation. Although, I mean, even for most of them, they do fudge something or other. Like if you go frame by frame, you'll see like, oh, a Cheetor just like from one frame to the next, his cheetah leg suddenly just like now is a robot leg. It's not always perfect, but yeah. I thought of all of their visual designs, I think I like Optimus's the most. Just like the black and gray and white colors work for me. I know that certainly when I originally saw Beast Wars as a kid, I was like, it looks like Optimus Prime's face, but with a mouth. And I thought that was weird. But now the mouth really works for me. And seeing like Optimus Prime without a mouth, I'm like, I'd love to see a facial expression on this guy.
Yeah, it would certainly help towards making him a little more accessible, even though the toy did not have lips, right?
Yes, you're right. The original toy Optimus Primal did not have a defined mouth. It just had that mouth plate that the original Optimus Prime did. Real quickly, while we're talking about Optimus, Phil, do you remember that long ago I had suggested that rather than calling him Optimus Primal, his name should have been Apetimus Prime?
Yes, I actually thought of that during the show, and I was like, that actually was a real missed opportunity. They really should have called him Apetimus.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I can see why they'd want to keep Optimus in there, but in that case, why not Optimus Primate? Whatever. I mean, I guess it wouldn't really make much sense of like, why would he already have been named Optimus Primate beforehand? But maybe he just changed his name like everybody else did.
Yeah. And one other thing, the brilliance of Apetimus is that there are just so many catchphrase options that spring to mind. It's time to go apeshit on this problem. Better to ape your betters, Megatron. Optimus doesn't sound like that. Why am I doing that?
I like bananas because I'm an ape.
So that's the voice of Apetimus.
Yeah.
Whereas Optimus is like kind of the John Wayne style. Apetimus. Wait, what was the line that you just said?
I like bananas because I'm an ape.
Yeah, I like bananas because I'm an ape. Maximize that. Maximize that into 2, maybe 3 bananas. So we have to hear from Apetimus in every episode now. You do realize that?
Yes, we do need a dedicated Apetimus segment.
So does Aptimus do like a fake commercial, or does Aptimus make a comment about what Aptimus would have done in this episode?
We might need to see what feels right. What feels right for Aptimus' role is hanging out in a tree for one thing, because I'm an ape.
So like Aptimus is refers to himself in the third person, is like at least 30 to 35% Macho Man Randy Savage.
Yes, conservatively.
And then there's another.
He at best uses ape related puns like, time to go ape shit. Which I guess isn't really a pun, but it incorporates the word ape. Or he just lazily refers to himself as an ape at the end of the sentence.
Time to patch things up with some scotch. Ape?
Once upon a time, I would have said Optimus and Silverbolt were my favorite characters, but no, it's now it's definitely Aptimus.
Aptimus. If any of the listeners would like to write in with a picture of what Aptimus Prime looks like, do you have a way they can get into contact with us, Andy?
Write to us at beastwarstalk@gmail.com. If we like your drawing of Aptimus, we will pay you a very small amount of money in order for us to put it on t-shirts and sell for hopefully a large amount of money for us to keep.
That's what Aptimus would do. Can I ask you one more non sequitur question before we obviously?
Get back to talking about Beast Wars.
Yeah. So of the, I think, 3 different Optimus Primal variants in the show, which one is your favorite?
Just like visually, which one I like the most?
And that can include like some of the battle and movement stuff.
Season 1, I think it's a nice, really clean look. The Optimus Primal toy looked great too, and I think the in the show it even like streamlines it a bit further. I love his forearm mounted shotgun. There's some episode later on, I don't remember what it is. Optimus is in a fist fight where he like just puts like the shotgun right into the bad guy's belly and blows a hole in them or something. I think that's really cool. So yeah, just season 1 overall for me. But what about for you?
If the Transmetal version of Optimus weren't so weird, it would be that for me, especially because Transmetal Optimus looks just like David Hasselhoff.
In his robot form, let's point out. We're not trying to say that David Hasselhoff looks like a purple metal gorilla, but rather that if you fused Optimus Primal's face with a gorilla's face, robot form-wise, it would look exactly like David Hasselhoff. We got a few That's Just Primes in these 2 episodes, which I liked. And we also got, I think, at least 2 instances of Rat Trap's "We're all gonna die," his famous catchphrase. I had remembered That's Just Prime. I'd forgotten about Rat Trap so often saying "we're all gonna die." But as soon as he said it, I was like, oh yeah, that was his catchphrase. Nice.
Can I admit to something else? I spent way too much time thinking about that Rat Trap says.
Yeah.
So I think I spent 5 minutes trying to think about this when he says "for booting up cold." Oh, for booting up cold.
Yeah.
I tried to reverse engineer that the way I would reverse engineer, "oh, for God's sake."
Yeah, or for me, it is closest to like "for crying out loud," but it's still, I mean, obviously it's not 1-to-1. You know computers better than me. Like, is there such a thing as like a cold boot up? Does that mean anything?
I mean, I would equate that to like a hard restart. Something's going on and you just go bam and like the whole thing restarts. I guess I would call that a cold boot. I think a cold boot more formally is when you boot up into some sort of lower level of the operating system where just certain parts of it come online so you can do some diagnostic stuff.
Okay.
It's weird that I feel like I know more about that than the provenance of "for crying out loud." What does "for crying out loud" mean?
Yeah, I mean, I know like why people say it. They say it like, "Oh, I'm frustrated." But yeah, what? I mean, we're both at computers, and I could look it up, but I think it's better podcasting to just say, "Wow, really makes you wonder."
It does.
But hey, don't just stand there aping at each other. Oh, you're right, Aptimus. We should get back on track.
You know what Aptimus would say?
What would you say, Aptimus?
Oh, shit. Oh. Yeah, that's where you would go with that.
Yep.
Oh, yes, yes. All of your plans have come to naught. Oh shit! Oh shit! This motherfucker again. And then Megatron goes, "I can't believe I lose to this at the end of every episode."
So we were talking about Beast Wars. Megatron's stated goal is to get enough energon to power the Predacons' plans for galactic conquest. We're never really told how energon equates to galactic conquest. Step 1, get energon. Step 2, blank. Step 3, profit kind of thing. You know, like when they see the mountain of energon, they're like, oh, with that much energon, Megatron would be unstoppable. Is it just that they would make weapons and the energon would power the weapons? Can a transformer just like shoot up with energon and then like be indestructible or something? It never really tells us. It doesn't have to, but it's just something I noticed. There's much ado about energon, but it's more a MacGuffin than anything else.
So I have a hot take on the energon thing. Like, how is that supposed to play out? What is that a shorthand for? Well, if we think about the 90s and we think about the Gulf Wars, you know, you really could make this out to be like a 1-for-1 proxy with oil and all of the invading we did and like how much of a commodity that is and how it also does just kind of seem like a wrap economically whenever you have all of that oil.
Yeah, that's true. And even like going back to the 80s show, you know, where there were oil embargoes and whatnot. That then does remind me that in at least the very first episode of the original Transformers, Energon, I think, is just they put a bunch of like oil on some platform and smushed it down, and then now it was an Energon cube or something. I guess Energon in Beast Wars, it'll be just its own thing. I see how, like, in the abstract, yes, a lot of energon could be used to power a war machine in the way that a lot of oil could be used to power war apparatus on Earth. But Megatron's like stranded here on this planet, and he only has the capacity to make whatever his ship has the capacity to make. You know, to me, like, if Megatron got that mountain full of energon, it's not obviously like a problem for today. You know, it's a problem for at whatever point in the future Megatron is able to mine the raw materials from this planet and turn it into machines that are powered by energon, you know? But again, it's a kid's show, and I'm looking at it from my adult sci-fi pedantic point of view.
So let's say we were going to write the subsequent season, a better show than Beast Machines, where we have to figure out how all of those energon stores get deployed. The first thing I would think of is weapons of mass destruction. I don't know, giant cannons manned by Predacons flying around Cybertron. I would also think of them powering those giant combiner Autobot City. Like those are the things. Maybe if you have a few of those, it's kind of like a done deal, something like that.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it was also just funny because I thought like, oh, Megatron would be unstoppable with that much energon. That much energon wouldn't even fit on his ship. I mean, unless he's like, I guess maybe the fear is he would take control of the energon and then maybe perhaps send word to other Predacons to get them to come pick up this energon. Anyway. We all agree we don't want Predacons to get energon. We've got the one fight as Cheetor spots Waspinator. He drops the line, robots in disguise. Yeah, I'm glad they fit it in somewhere. Also, though, I think that might be the only time any of the Beast Wars characters are actually able to use their beast form as a disguise because after this episode, they all recognize each other and, you know, it's not like we ever see Rhinox has blended in with a herd of other rhinoceroses in order to spy on the Predacons or something.
That's a really good point. And now it makes me realize how stupid it is that they all just showed up together at the bridge. Like, hey, here's all of us, and why would 5 animals like us be hanging out together other than the fact that we came here to blow you up?
Yeah, but whatever. This is not a show about robots being in disguise, other than in that one moment. They have a fight, and then, you know, the dramatic cliffhanger at the end of episode 1 is Dinobots showing up, challenging Optimus to a fight to the death. Oh, but yeah, another note I had was during that fight, it was very nice of them to all wait their turn to transform. And that like nobody attacked each other while they were all like one at a time transforming. I know that's just because we want the beauty shot of each character getting to transform one at a time, but it was just funny to me, like terror sword, terror eyes, and like he doesn't get shot in the middle of that.
You just made me realize, as much as we like to tout the writing of this show, if there is one major plot hole in the fight on the bridge.
Okay.
You know, when Dinobot goes, and for the loser, it is a long way down. Optimus can fly.
He can. It did look like one of his prime jets got shot during that fight, but it looked like the other one was still working fine. And probably at the very least, he would have, even if he couldn't fly up, he could, I would think, slow his descent enough to be all right. But whatever. I guess Dinobot didn't know that. Dinobot doesn't know that Optimus can fly, I guess. And Optimus, honorable as he is, felt no need to inform him, I suppose. And I don't blame him. I love Optimus. I gotta say, when at the beginning of episode 2, he's like, Dinobot, we don't have to fight. You're welcome to join us, but not as the leader. Like, man, this guy. If only we all were able to have a boss like Optimus Prima. I know Rat Trap giving him a lot of shit in these first 2 episodes, but yeah, I like the guy.
How to handle an emotional employee.
Yeah, yes. Right after that fight, the missiles blow up that mountain. Although I did find it so funny because the sequence is all the Predacons shoot their missiles, Optimus and Dinobot get out of the way, and then Scorponok says, "Look, the missiles!" And then the Predacons turn and see the missiles hit the mountain and blow up. But otherwise, at the point that Scorponok said, "Hey, look, the missiles," nothing noteworthy had happened with the missiles, unless it was like, "Oh, that was my favorite missile, and now it's gone forever." Or it just Scorponok just think it's cool to see a missile hit a mountain. Like, hey, yo, check this out. Those missiles are about to hit that mountain.
Maybe Scorponok has some stuff going on we don't know about, but we don't also want to make him feel bad about either.
All right, fair enough. Yeah, so we talked about, they're like, it's a race for this giant energon crystal. Dinobot says it would make Megatron unstoppable. But it also made me wonder, later episodes do establish that the Maximum Predacon ships do have automated defenses, but we don't know that as of now. And possibly as of now, given that the ships are in bad shape, maybe they don't. It did make me wonder, what if the Maximals had just like gone to the unattended Predacon ship and blown it up while the Predacons were all racing for all that energon? Would raw energon have been of any use to them without a ship? Without a ship, I wonder. But then we don't really have a show if they just blow up the ship.
That is a plot point, but I could defend it with a point I'll make later. Let's keep going.
All right. As the Maximals are on their way, there's a Stonehenge-looking area, seeding future mysteries. Both sides get to the mountain at the same time, and then they just like run into each other and a bunch of them bounce off each other, which was to me very, very funny. To me was very reminiscent of a kid just like taking 2 toys and smashing them against each other.
That's funny. Do you think that was intentional? If it is, that's kind of brilliant.
I don't know. I mean, sometimes they really kind of go on the nose with the references that they're making, but this might have been a subtle one, or it might have just been a connection I made that they weren't meaning to do.
So the moment where they both show up, and then you have like, the Jets and the Sharks, the Maximals come in on this side, the Predacons come in on that side. And usually those are like homages or tropes that are done in like cartoons. They're meant to evoke something, but it kind of falls flat. Mm-hmm. I thought it was so fucking cool that they made the climactic battle one where they had to fight as animals. I just think it's just so smart and so cool. Like, what separates this generation from the previous generation? Why does it matter that they're animals? Like, what's cool about that? And it's like they both showed up to the fight and we're like, you want to do this? You want to we'll fight as animals. We will do that. And when they both showed up to fight as animals, I was like, that is just so dope. It's very cool. And it sets the tone of a lot of different things about the show. Like, they will embrace the nature of this world and they will embrace the fight in whatever way they have to. But what is primal and what is eternal is their hatred for each other.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, and on the one hand, it separates Beast Wars from older shows, and that I don't remember them ever really like I don't remember Optimus Prime crashing in truck form into like Starscream's jet form or something. Like they didn't really do fighting in their alt modes there, but so here they do. So yeah, it's a good way to show off animals can fight each other. That's why these toys are cool, kids, because you can have them fight whether they're in beast mode or robot mode. Yeah, it was cool. One thing that has always bothered me about Beast Wars is the general inconsistencies in terms of like what injury means for a robot. Some of it is fight specific, like in the first fight in part one, Cheetor gets a direct shot at Megatron's T-Rex jaw, but Megatron basically just acts like he's been punched. All right, I guess sometimes a gun does nothing more than act like a punch. But then later in part two, the fight on the bridge, Optimus momentarily seems to like knock Dinobot out with a punch. So I was like, oh, I guess maybe a punch is sometimes stronger than a gun. Or is it just like, oh, well, hitting, the robot head is what actually counts and hitting somebody's beast mode head doesn't matter. I don't know. Later on, Dinobot's eye laser seems to mostly just knock Optimus off balance and not actually like injure him at all. Then during that fight on the mountain, Megatron is trying to like bite Optimus's neck. What would have happened had he succeeded? Would it have killed him? Like, I don't know what is a vital organ to these robots, especially when they're in beast mode. When Optimus later gets bitten on the leg, we do see like a sparky robot interior. I guess we would have seen just sparky robot neck interior. Long story short, if you've seen Beast Wars already, you know that Waspinator can be totally blown to smithereens and be okay, but Dinobot will have a bad fight and die. I know it's a cartoon, but the sci-fi fan in me likes there to be some degree of consistent rules.
It's a fair point. I'm also trying to separate out what are the inconsistencies in the pilot that they later ironed out. Like maybe they did establish some ground rules at some point for what's what. But it does feel like, at least in season one, it's all over the place, exactly as you described what the stakes are.
But we'll see. That'll be something to track. The Maximals really book it. It seems like within seconds, by the time the mountain explodes, the Maximals are like 5 miles away. But hey, they're robots in disguise. They can really move fast, I guess. Optimus's last line of the episode, I had always misremembered this line. I had thought Optimus would say, and they'll be known as the Beast Wars. But instead he says, let it be called Beast Wars. Which is just as bad as the way I'd misremembered it. It's there because they wanted to end the show with a dramatic camera pullback, as he says, Beast Wars. I guess it gives some context to later on. I think they do, within the show, refer to their conflict as the Beast Wars every now and then. I guess Optimus said it here, and independently Megatron also decided to call it the Beast Wars, or just Optimus said it so loud that the Predacons heard him and were like, okay, yeah, that fits.
No, I came up with it. I deemed them to be the Beast Wars.
Hey, listen, I sometimes I go ape shit, but I know bullshit when I hear a Megatron. Apetimus came up with it, not you.
And now it's time for Apetimus's favorite segment, Ape Shit or Bullshit with Apetimus Primate.
So there we go. I think that basically covers my notes. Anything else you wanted to talk about, Phil?
Yeah, there were a couple of other tidbits I wanted to throw in. One, so recently I did a trip of the southwestern United States, which somewhat well. And there was something I noticed in the episode that I never would have realized as a child, but I feel like I have a better sense for now. Where the Axelon lands looks just like Horseshoe Bend, right near Page, Arizona.
Whoa. Wow. Yeah, you're right.
When they did the pan, I was like, oh, that's Horseshoe Bend.
Whoa,
isn't that cool?
Yeah.
So I don't know, it's like a North American show, and so I don't know, they're the good guys, and they end up near the Grand Canyon, and it's prehistoric Earth, and I don't know, that's cool. And I assume that the Predacons end up in Portland, Oregon. I don't know why. That's just what it looked like.
We're gonna need to take some trips to some place where there are lava spirals. See if anything reminds us of where the Predacon ship is.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out whether or not it was an obvious homage to anything, but I don't think it is. I think it's just general evil.
Yeah,
Evil place.
Yeah.
When the Maximals do the first scan, when they're all doing the first scans to figure out what animals they're going to sample, how Optimus and Rhinox get their forms is they scan a conversation between a gorilla and a rhinoceros. Like the gorilla's just up in the tree. Da, 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 da. All rhinos just trees. I know. Yeah, you got it. I noticed immediately Dinobot taking on the Starscream role.
Yeah.
Like very briefly. And it's kind of cool from a writing perspective how they just go right to it. They don't like play that out. He's like, all right, you're out.
Yeah. And of course, we'll see in later episodes that Pterosaur does end up more being the Starscream for season 1. But yeah, it was funny. They're like, yes, you're expecting a Starscream. Here's a Starscream. Nope, never mind. And I did like that also was a good way for me to show like Megatron's character that he's like willing to throw down, but also like he'll play dirty when he has to. Oh, you've challenged me? Sure. And while we've had this conversation, my hype man is over here getting his missiles ready. It also was just funny that like Dinobot is just like, Megatron, you idiot. Like, you know what? If you hadn't gotten fired, you should have expected a call from HR because that's no way to talk to your boss.
He was going to be put on a PIP for sure. I think it's interesting how both leaders are immediately questioned. Both of their competences are questioned immediately. And I think that's kind of a departure from something like Transformers, where it's like only evil people infight and question the leader. Like the Autobots would all rally around Optimus and all of the Decepticons would fight amongst themselves. And I just thought that it was very interesting to demonstrate the differences between Optimus's and Megatron's characters by showing how they both responded to like the same social crisis. Like both of their leaderships are questioned. And I think you were hinting at this earlier in the episode. He wins people over. He wins people over with his competency. He wins people over with his deal making, a little bit of savvy.
And showing himself to be honorable and worthy of trust.
Yeah. So that's cool. And then Megatron's just sort of like, well, here's my deal. You'd never know when the other shoe's going to drop. I can be effective too.
I guess we'll see over the next 3 seasons which leadership style ends up prevailing, ruling through fear or leading through trust. Quick question. They say our crew is now orbiting the planet in those stasis pods. I feel like the show never really in the end, when we end up, seeing stasis pods come down, they kind of treat them as newborns, sort of, or, that they've never been activated yet. Do you get the sense in this episode that that's what they were meaning? Whenever they got to wherever they were supposed to explore, they would have been activated? Or do you feel like here they were trying to say that most of the crew was traveling just in stasis because it was going to be a long trip, but they had been awake on Cybertron before they got into those pods?
Very much the latter. That's what I was thinking. And to the extent that you and I would be deployed to another planet and we would wake up in our cat forms, I would be Felix Tomcat and you would be Tab Drew Catman.
Yeah, checks out.
And we would be us, but it's like the cat forms of us. So I think you could build in the whole cultural retconning thing I was talking about. But I took it in this episode the way you did, just to be straight up, they're in stasis. They were live on Cybertron. We're just waiting to get to the place.
Yeah. It doesn't really matter, I guess. It was interesting to me that then when they finally do start showing them, they're not just crew in stasis, they're protoforms. And like, oh, well, I guess these are brand new Transformers who have never been activated yet. It's never really explained why they weren't just crewing the ship, why we had to wait till they get to whatever planet they're going to live on before we wake them up. But whatever, it's a show. You don't want to introduce 50 characters all at once.
What matters is they'll make great toys.
They sure will.
It was just really funny seeing all the Maximals riding Rhinox into battle.
Yes.
There's an ape, a rat riding a rhino as fast as the rhino can go. And like there's a cheetah in there somewhere too.
Yeah. I also did think it was funny that, like, as Optimus and Rat Trap are riding on Rhinox to catch up with Cheetor, where he's getting shot at by the Predacons. Optimus is like, oh, go around these boulders, and Rhinox plows through. But, like, by that point, Rhinox had been a rhinoceros for, like, a half hour. Lucky for him that he did a good job estimating his strength, because it would have been very funny had he crashed into it like, oh, I guess I'm not as strong as these boulders after all.
I feel like I've done equally stupid things on a motorcycle. It's like, well, thank God that worked out, because if then I would be dead.
Yeah.
It's just kind of funny how much of a shit show the Maximals are versus the Predacons. And in some ways, I thought that was unintentional. But the more I looked at it, here's like the angle that I see there. The Predacons are like a militant organization. So they have a hierarchy and they know how to operate and they know what the deal is. So if they're going to go hunt the Maximals and kill them, they're operating within the confines of what they're trained to do. And that sort of training and leadership and organization is what allows them to immediately get the upper hand, because they're all unified. The Maximals, they don't even know, are all these people going to listen to Optimus anyway? But as the episode goes on, the fact that they're a research crew starts to rule the day more and more. Like the fact that they can adapt, that Optimus can adapt on the fly. Like he's open to taking Dinobot on because he's open to this being like a research initiative. He's open to new ideas. He's open to changing things to see if they'll work and see what happens. I thought that was just kind of a cool element.
Yeah.
Do you think that was intentional?
I think it was intentional, if nothing else, in the sense of it gives our heroes a satisfying arc to start off as a squabbling group that then becomes a more cohesive whole. Even just like over the course of the pilot. And we'll see their cohesiveness continue to improve over the course of the whole show. I mean, also in general, like the Maximals are always going to get more characterization than the Predacons because they're the protagonists. Thus, there's more room for nuanced storytelling among the protagonists, and you could have them like have disagreements, but still like agree broadly on things. Whereas, like for a group like the Predacons that you're not going to dedicate as much time to, it's a nice shorthand to just be like, all right, sure, all of them except Dinobot are just willing to, follow Megatron's orders. And of course, we'll see as time goes on, Pterosaur is gunning for Megatron's job. Tarantulas is always doing his own thing. We kind of only have Megatron's word that Predacons as a whole have not truly been interested in keeping the peace between Maximals and Predacons. For all we know, Megatron convinced 4 other Predacons. So like, hey, let's fight Maximals. Let's go steal this disc and go to a place with a bunch of Energon. And like a million other Predacons are like, oh, geez, this fucking guy. He's making all the rest of us look bad.
Okay. Well, we'll have to see where that theme takes us through the next few episodes.
Feels like a good note to end on. Thank you, everybody, for listening. I've been Andy Hunter.
I've been Phil Thomas.
And now we have talked about Beast Wars.